Hi everyone, this is John Schwabish. In this video I'm going to show you how to use the data importing tool in Excel because I find a lot of people don't know about the data importing tool, and by using it you can make your work more efficient and more replicable so that you avoid some of the errors. And so what I'm going to use in this tutorial is I'm going to use the American Community Survey from 2015. I'm just going to download some basic data. I'm going to do some programming in Stata. I'm going to output an output file and I'm going to read it into Excel using the data importing features. So before I get into the data, let me just show you my folder structure. So I have my Excel data input blog post. This is what I'm going to write here. So inside there I have 4 folders. I have the data folder, and inside the data folder are already 3 folders, three files. So this is a zip file I get. I use the IPUMS tool website to get the data. So I'm going to download that. They're going to download into what's called a DAT file. And I'm going to run a little bit of code that I'm not going to show you now, but I run some code and I get a main data file called acs2015.dta. This is a stated data file. I'm going to use that data file in my work. I also have a do files folder, and you can see I have 2 files in that folder. This USA underscore 00098, that is the main do file I use to move the data from that DAT data file format to the Stata data file format. And then my ACS tabs do file is in the file I'm going to use to create the tabulations that I'll show you in a moment. I also have a log files folder that at the moment I'm not using. And finally I have an output tab, and you can see I already have a CSV file in here. This is the output tab folder I'm going to use to create my output. So let me go over to Excel, or I'm sorry, over to Stata. You see I already have some code already written out here. And if you're not familiar with Stata code, that's okay. You don't need Stata code to do this project. I'm just going to use this to show you how to use the data importing tool in Excel. So basically, just is going to read in that ACS 2015 DTA folder. These slashes and asterisks will come out in this block of code, so we're not going to use that now. What I'm going to do is basically just create an age group, and for each age group, you can see I've written some code here. So I have under 18, 18 to 29, 30 to 39, etc., etc. I'm going to drop anyone who has income from earnings that's equal to 0. I'm going to do some tabs just to check. Then I'm going to collapse this down. I'm going to get the mean income by sex and age group. So for men and women, for each of these 8 age groups, I'm going to have mean income, weighted mean income using the weights from this file. And then I'm going to export it out, as you saw already, that ACS 2015. I'm going to export it out as a CSV file. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you how this runs. So I'm just going to select all the code, and I'm going to do, and you can see it running over here. It's running the tabs. It's going to give me a little table here, and then it's going to collapse the data down and save it out. And now what a lot of people do is they'll grab this and they'll copy and paste it into Excel. And of course that leads to lots of errors. Maybe you change the data or change the code, and you don't really want to do that. So I really encourage you to do something like this where you export your final tabulation into Excel, and then in Excel you can do more analysis, or you can make your graphs, which is what a lot of people do. So I'm going to flip over here to Excel. I'm going to go to Sheet 1, and in my Data tab, now of course I'm on my Mac, but it looks the same on a PC. In the Data tab, in the first little group here, there's a bunch of buttons from FileMaker, from HTML, from text, from database queries, some other things in here. So I'm going to go from text, I'm going to hit that button, and I'm already in my output folder. So I'm in my Excel data input in my output folder. So I'm going to grab that file, I'm going to select it, I'm going to set get data, and now I end up in this text import wizard. And there's 2 ways to go along this import wizard. So first it's already moved on to delimited, but I'll show you fixed width. Fixed width, if I click next, is right now it's not going to do anything, but if I click in this table, I can set up my own width. So this might be useful in this is certainly useful in some occasions where maybe you need to add lines like this, and what will happen is once I click through the rest of this menu, it's going to put the data into the columns. But the way I created this originally was to create a delimited file. So the delimiter here is a comma. And you see nothing's occurring in the preview here, but I'm going to hit comma, and you can see how it's added these 2 columns, and that means that I'm going to end up with a 3-column table for the age group, the men and the women. I'm going to hit next. I can go in and I can format this if I want. I don't need to do anything right now. I'm going to hit finish. It's going to prompt me for where I want the table. I'm going to put it in this sheet in cell A1, and I click OK, and you can see here that I've got men and women. Now, let me quickly make just a quick paired column chart. So I'm just going to select the data, hit that. and I have my column chart. And you can see, of course, closely, if you notice, you might know that Excel doesn't know that this age group series is not actual data. So I'm going to actually have to delete that, which is fine. I could just delete it out of the cell as well. But I'm going to select age group, select that, and I'm just going to hit delete. So I went to do that. I went to selected the chart. I went into the format menu and used this drop-down menu to grab that first series. And so now I have this very simple chart. Now notice it's just by number here, which I would have to change eventually if I wanted to make this a full-on chart. But we're not really going to worry about that right now. So what I want to do is show you how to refresh the data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste this data. This data is showing up here as text. So I'm just going to move it over here, and I'm going to slide the number of decimals all the way down so you'll be able to see it in a second. So here's our original data. This is what we just ran. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Stata, and I'm going to switch this. So I use this bit of code here to do these age groups that are 10-year bands. And I'm going to change it to do the first group here, which are also 10-year bands, but different. So 18 to 25 and then 25 to 35. So these numbers are all going to differ just a little bit. So again, I'm going to select all the data. I'm going to run it. You can see it running here in the viewer window, and it's going to collapse it down. And again, I'm going to get this. It's going to overwrite. I just overwrote the data, which is fine for the purposes of this experiment. So I'm going to click into this data table. This is where I originally read in and imported the data. I'm going to go back to the data tab. I'm going to hit refresh in this refresh dropdown and hit refresh. And it's going to prompt me to go back to that original file. And so I'm just going to bring this down so you can see it. And when I'm going to hit get data, it's not going to bring me to the text import wizard again because I've already done it once and it's going to apply the same formatting. So I'm going to hit get data, and you can see how everything moved around a little bit. And so let me just pull this down a little bit so you only have no decimals. And you can see by changing the data just slightly, by changing those cutoffs, I have different data for these values, which obviously makes sense because this one is now, let's go back and see. And so that one is 18 to 29, and in the new version it's 18 to 24. So I have those two different versions. So the only thing that you want to keep in mind about this text import wizard is that Excel doesn't necessarily remember where you put your data. So often what I will do is I will insert a row here, and I'll put in the name of the file. And so for me it's ACS_CSV. I tend to keep the Excel file with the raw data in the same thing, but now I have this. I might color it red, I might make it bold, and that way I know that it's sitting there. And this way, whenever I get into here, I can go back and hit refresh. And if I close this version of Excel and open a new instance of Excel, it might not bring me to the original folder, but now that I have this set up, I'm good to go. Okay, so that is how you use the data importing feature in Excel. It's in the data tab on all modern versions of Excel, 2010, 2011 on a Mac, 2013, 2016 on all operating systems. It's in this data tab, and I really do recommend as you're working with your data, get it into a version or a file format that you can read into Excel. So CSV will work, text will work, database formats will work. Read it in, and that way you can refresh it by not having to copy and paste from one program to another. So I hope this is helpful. If you need more information, please feel free to get in touch. Thanks so much.